we made more money from that one condo flip in 3 months than I made from my entire salary as physical therapist for a year.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And Icon Realty Group, helping home buyers, sellers, and investors in the West Michigan area. Find out more at theiconrealtygroup.com. Hello and welcome to episode 95. My guest today is Pat Sandro. He's a physical therapist and a realtor who's been around real estate investing his entire life. Yep. So he learned about real estate investing through his father, who he still does deals with, including flips. But Pat also does some land contracts on the side, and he's got some interesting stories for us today about some of the properties he's owned and deals he's done. Pat, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Brian. Nice to be here.
You were telling me before the show here that you were one of the original house hack babies.
Yeah, I guess I was.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you were exposed to real estate investing through your father?
Well, I was born in 1965, and that's the house that I first lived in. As my dad owned a 2-unit property there, and so we lived in one side and he rented out the other side. And then from there, my dad just kind of kept buying houses. Eventually, ended up with 36 units. So I always kind of knew of the game of real estate from him, but I also, because of that, saw the bad side. He was a self-manager, and so he always was responding to tenant problems, or as he would say, tenants and toilets. So that kind of made me not really want to get into the business as I grew up. But now that I'm older, I can see the benefits of it and really kind of enjoy it.
When did you first recognize that, hey, my dad owns properties and people are paying him to live in them?
Right. Well, it's probably high school, because at that point I would help him do some painting, cut some grass. I would see some of the properties that he owned and was working on. So I was kind of just kind of helping him out, just kind of seeing when he needed a few things to.
So what was your takeaway from your high school experience? Were you saying, I don't ever want to be a rental property owner?
Exactly.
Or were you saying, wow, I can make some money owning rental property?
I didn't. I was a kid growing up. All I wanted to do was play sports and hang out with my friends. And so I guess I would say I thought it was more bad than good, because, my dad was always responding to some situation where the police had to show up to home, or he had a tenant go bad or a toilet go bad in the middle of the night. And so he was always kind of responding to that stuff. So it was difficult. In hindsight, it'd be nice if he could have had them managed, because he worked full time as well.
What kind of investor was he? Was he buying these properties with cash and owning them free and clear? Was he getting bank loans on them? Do you remember how he structured the deals?
Yeah, I think he mostly was getting bank loans or buying them on land contract. I think that was kind of big back then. And he sold a lot of them on land contract. But no, he was kind of just a buy and hold investor. He didn't do a whole lot of renovating. He made the units nice and livable. He would like to say he kind of undercharged with the rents because he was so busy. He didn't want a lot of turnover, so he wanted to keep people in there as long as he could.
Well, it sounds like your dad was a real do-it-yourselfer.
Exactly. Yep.
So he probably never, other than making you do some of the work,
right?
Did he ever hire anyone else to help him? I mean, he obviously didn't want to hire a property manager.
No, he felt like there was nobody better to do the job than himself. So. And, he was trying to, in his mind, maximize his profits. And so that was how he thought best to do that. And quite honestly, he still does that today.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Now, he had 36 units. Where were these located?
Mostly in the Heritage Hill, Grand Rapids.
Heritage Hill, Grand Rapids, which is kind of the historic neighborhood of Grand Rapids.
And kind of his idea of buying there was that he could see at some point with the hospital, Spectrum being right there, Butterworth, that area was going to explode one day, and he wanted to be right in the middle of it. As it turns out, he probably sold 5 to 8 years before it took off.
When did he sell these?
Probably 10 years ago. I bought the last 4 unit that he had from him 3 years ago.
Okay, so he held on to a 4 unit.
Yep.
And you just bought it.
And that was the best one, quite honestly. I think that was his best property, so I was not going to let him sell that one.
Where's that located?
Right behind Central High School.
Good area.
Yeah, really
Very
nice.
good area.
And it was built to be a 4 unit. It's brick, 4 one-bedroom units with off-street parking garage. It's a nice property.
And you manage the 4 unit yourself.
Yep.
So what is that like? Well, actually, let's go back in time. Do you remember what your dad originally paid for this 4 unit?
I don't, but I'm guessing it was somewhere around $70,000.
$70,000.
Yep.
What, about 30 years ago,
Yep.
maybe?
Yep.
Okay, and then now you bought it off of him about what'd you say? 4
About
years?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. And do you mind disclosing like how you worked out the terms and the price?
Well, let's say he is very interested in me succeeding in real estate, so I drastically underpaid for that house and bought it on land contract. So it's very easy for me to make, I guess, a nice gain with that house.
That's good.
Because of the price he sold it to me.
And at that point, did he own it free and clear?
Yes. Yeah.
And he was willing to hold the note and sell it to you on a land contract.
Yep.
Good. So talk about that. You'd watched your dad growing up managing properties, having all the headaches that come along with that.
Yep.
You buy this 4 unit from him on land contract. What did you do differently?
I really like to improve the properties that I own. So immediately put a new roof on it, did some new landscaping. Every time someone moves, of course, and he did this too, clean it, paint it, make it look nice.
Were you doing the work?
I've done some of it, but quite honestly, he continues to work in those properties because
he can't help himself.
No, he just loves painting and fixing, and so he's kind of been my property maintenance guy.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because he's really good at it, and obviously he's cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. So he still takes care of the property, even though he doesn't own it anymore.
Yep.
That's a good father.
Yep.
But you're managing in terms of leasing and dealing with the residents.
Yep.
How's that going?
It's not been a problem at all. I tend to attract in that area now young professionals, so I have not had the issues that I've had in previous tenant experiences, just because of, I guess, the quality of the tenant that we can attract there.
Once you took over this 4 unit, did you put any new systems in place as far as managing the rent roll and the numbers and profit and loss statements, that kind of thing?
I really haven't. No, it's just because I only have a 4 unit, it's pretty easy for me to just manage it, I guess, the old-fashioned way, just putting things on paper.
So you're doing pencil and paper, huh?
Yeah, I'm not too high tech.
Okay.
But if I ever have problems with tenants or if it becomes unmanageable, I will not hesitate to get a professional property manager and do it. Just if the hassle factor goes up, I will change how I do things. But to this point, it's been quite easy to manage it. Yep. And quite honestly, I get $300 a month more per month for each apartment than my dad got when he owned it.
So that was one of the things you did, was raise the rents.
I did, and I consulted a property manager, and I said, "Hey, what is the market for this home? And, what should the rents be?" So that's kind of how I learned, what the rent should be.
Where were they?
He was at $500, $550
for
it's a 1 bedroom,
1 bed, 1 bath,
about 650 square foot.
Okay, on Lion Street in Heritage Hills. And you bumped them up to how much?
They're right around $775 to $800.
Yeah, that's market now.
Yep.
Did your dad just keep them low because he didn't want the turnover?
He did. Yep. And in fact, when he owned the house, he had a guy there for 11 years. One guy, and several people would stay there for years. Yeah. Where I have found that I'm probably keeping people for a year or two, and then they're moving.
So you have the turnover.
Yep.
What do you think? I mean, is it worth it to raise the rents a couple $100, but have turnover more often? I mean, how much does it?
Well, I think
cost
so.
you?
I just think it's the clientele that I'm renting to. It's kind of upwardly mobile professionals that are in their upper 20s, and then they get another job and they move on, or they find a different place that they want to live. Maybe outside of Heritage Hill, they buy their own home. So that's the people that I've had.
And what about the cost to you then every time it turns over? I mean, you've got lost income for a month or two.
I probably lose a month. I haven't always, but just because we always renovate it, whatever from the time my dad can get in there. And
I guess you've got the free labor.
I've got the free labor, so
not costing you as much.
Yep.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. Now, you've done some other deals as well, and you and your dad bought a 12-unit.
We did.
Let's talk about that.
Yep. So, well, I actually should even go back before that. I went to physical therapy school in Florida, and then my dad had purchased a condo in Florida next
While you
to
were in school?
No, after school.
Okay.
Yeah, this was 10 years
So
after I
this wasn't
graduated.
one of those things buy rental property where your kids go into school and have them rent it out to their friends?
No, this was 06, I believe. And down there, property was just going through the roof.
It was booming. So he paid at the height of the market.
Well, he bought a fairly inexpensive one on the ocean. It was an estate sale, and so he got a really good deal. So he fixed that one up, and while my parents were living there, they kind of went back and forth to Michigan. Another one in the building came up. He fixed it up and did very well, and he said to me, "You got to get down here. We can do very well down here." So I went down to Florida in the winter. I left my physical job here, and I worked for a buddy in physical therapy part-time in Florida. And then we flipped a condo. We made more money from that one condo flip in 3 months than I made for my entire salary as physical therapist for a year.
Really?
So I thought, this is insane.
But this was going into the bubble. So the bubble had not burst yet.
Yep.
So tell me how the numbers on that condo flip that you did.
If I remember right, we bought it for like $189, something like that.
So a condo on the beach. In
Fort Lauderdale. We did some renovations, not just new flooring and...
Like what, 10, 20,000 into it?
Not even that. 10, 15,000, and we flipped it for like 100,000 more than what we bought it for.
Wow.
And that's insane.
And you split that with your buddy?
My dad.
With your dad?
Yeah,
okay.
no,
So
my buddy
your dad was your partner on that?
Yep.
Okay.
So I think that was kind of my spark into wanting to get back into real estate because, I like my job as a therapist, but to think that I could make more money with one property flip than working at the entire year, thought, okay.
Screw helping other people. Let's go make some
Forget
money.
that. Yep.
I mean, that's pretty compelling.
Yeah.
But it was also dangerous too.
It was absolutely dangerous. And I said to my dad at the time, I said, this is not real. This cannot keep happening. So
you even sensed it then.
I did.
It was irrational.
Absolutely.
The fact that someone would pay you $100,000 more for something that you only put $15,000.
Yeah. Not only that,
it's irrational.
The guy that bought the property was willing to pay more than what it appraised for. So we had to sell it for less than what he was willing to pay for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it was irrational, no doubt.
2006, you were right on the edge of the bubble there. So what happened next?
Well, so now I'm all fired up about real estate, and I come back to Michigan, and I start working my PT job again, and my dad came back, and I said, hey, we got to do a flip here. So we bought a foreclosure in Belmont and did the same thing, fixed it up, made it really nice, put it on the market, and the market died. So we made good money on that property. This one, we lost $25,000.
Oh, okay.
And so now I'm like, well, that didn't work. I mean, maybe this isn't such a good idea. So, but I still love real estate. I was very disappointed with that one. So I guess that was probably 08, 07, 08.
So the market had turned on you.
Yes.
At that point, it was like,
Yep.
You're a completely different market now.
Absolutely.
Plus, you're in Michigan.
Yep.
Florida took an even bigger hit. So it's probably better you didn't do that in Florida.
Well, my dad had even bought another one. He goes, I think this is still going to work. So he bought another condo in Florida on the Intercoastal, and he ended up holding that for 6 years because he couldn't sell it.
Okay.
The money
rent it out during that period.
Unfortunately, he couldn't because the condo rules prevented it.
So it's that empty.
So he just had to hold it.
Oh,
yep. So we were on the cusp of at the end of the boom, and we're at the start of the bust on both sides of that.
How'd that, after 6 years, did he sell it? And
he did.
Did he lose money off
yes,
of it?
It didn't
but he was
go
able
well.
to get it off the books. Huh?
Yep.
Yeah, that's painful. He's obviously, and you've done this, bought in condo buildings down in Florida. And I've owned a couple condo rentals, and I hate them. I hate condo rentals, and it's because you got the HOA and the rules. And if you are in a building or a complex where people aren't paying their HOAs, the whole property just goes downhill.
Yep.
And there's nothing you can do about it. And I've been in those situations. I finally sold my last out-of-state property this past year in 2016, and it was a condo in North Carolina.
Okay.
And I bought it at, I want to say I paid $65 for it. I sold it at $25.
Wow.
And I would have sold it for less just to get it off my books because it had gone downhill. And it's not because I didn't take care of the unit. I put the money into the unit. I had a professional management company taking care of it, but people just weren't paying their HOA, and the whole complex just really suffered because of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my. I got off on a little tangent.
No,
but tell me, do you still like investing in condos, or have you not done it for a while?
Well, yes and no. I like the fact that they don't have any exterior maintenance. It's just kind of an inside kind of thing.
Yeah.
So my dad and I, again, have working on flipping a condo, and it's all done. So I'm about to sell it. So.
Where is it? Is this in Florida?
Nope, this is in Michigan, the Grand Rapids. Yep. Okay. Alpine and Lamoureux.
Yeah. So good. So hopefully you're going to make some money.
Right. So but on the other hand, the rules of the condo do make it very restrictive to certain activities, even such as renting sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you sell this condo that I guess flipping is different than a buy and hold because you're going to sell it to, probably you're forced to sell it to a home buyer or a homeowner rather than a investor.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I can rent this condo. So I originally bought it with the intention of renting it, but I think it's really nice now. It's really fixed up nice. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to put a tenant in there to have them beat it up. I almost think maybe I'll just sell it.
I'd also like to tell you about Joshua Schaub and his team at Icon Realty Group, a full-service real estate company in the West Michigan area. Joshua has been a guest on this show several times, and he and his team at Icon Realty Group help buyers gain an edge in this competitive market. They assist sellers in getting the best price and terms for their properties, and they work with investors to understand the numbers, neighborhoods, and market forces that will set them up for long-term success. To learn more and get a free, no-obligation consultation, contact Joshua at 616-216-2000 or visit theiconrealtygroup.com. So you're flipping this condo right now.
Mm-hmm.
How did you buy it? Did you just buy it on the market, or did you get it some other way? And what's your game plan to make a profit off of it?
I did. I bought it through a realtor friend of mine. It was a bank-owned foreclosure. We'll find out if what I bought for it is the right number. I kind of think I paid $10,000 too much because I have not done the deal for so long. It was just frustrating to me that I hadn't found anything. So I'm like, you know what? I think we can make this work. So we will find out if this is going to work. I think it will.
Uh-huh.
It's very nice. It's a nice area, nice condo, and I think it's going to work. So we'll find out.
When will you find out? When will it be
Well, we'll
ready
probably
to
put it on the market here in the next week or two.
Okay.
It's ready to go.
Good.
Yep.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, thanks.
We were about to talk about the 12 unit that you had bought, and you
Yep.
kind of went back and
Yep.
so you kind of filled in the details of investing with your father, doing some flips down in Florida, maybe doing some flips up here as well. Where did the 12 unit fit into that?
So this is then in '08, after this failed flip that we did in Michigan. I said, I really want to get into real estate. That one didn't go well, but the one before did go well, and I just like the fact that I'm in a job where everything is the same every day. So this is something that I can do for myself and for retirement purposes or whatever. We decided to go after this. It's an 8 unit and a 4 unit in Lowell. And my dad, his advice was, I had houses kind of scattered all over the place. It's kind of better to have, quote, all your problems in one place. Mm-hmm. So that's why we decided to do this property.
So you bought it in '08.
Yep.
And so I bought my first 12 unit in '08.
Okay.
It was a buyer's market.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody out there buying.
Okay.
In '08. I don't know if you ran into the same thing, but I certainly didn't have any competition when I bought my 12 unit.
Not a lot. No, we were able to go into it, look at it, think about it, come back. Probably didn't offer what the asking price was. I don't remember what the asking price was anymore, but
yeah. So what'd you pick it up for?
$395,000.
$390. That's right around what I paid for my 12 unit. I paid $385.
Okay.
Yeah. What condition was it in when you bought it?
Decent. It needed repairs, so that was kind of our thought. We'll get into it. We'll fix it up. We'll make it better. We'll operate it and just kind of see how it goes.
And what kind of occupancy did it have?
Well, it was fully occupied, but that's another story. It was fully occupied with people that probably shouldn't have been there. So it was a 2-year, very painful process of evictions, late payments. I mean, it was an education for me. And
so the physical occupancy was 100%,
yes.
But it sounds like the economic occupancy was actually a lot less.
Yeah, I was literally chasing 3 to 4 people a month for rent every month.
Really?
And I had multiple evictions. I probably lost $1,500 on 4 or 5 tenants over those 2 years with just trying to chase the payments before I could evict them.
When you say chase the payments, what do you mean?
Well, first of all, I'm a, quote, I guess I would call myself a nice guy. So people would tell me the story of, I had to bail my son out of jail this week so I can't come up with a rent, or I had to put new tires on my car so I can't come up with a rent. And I was like, okay, well, just, hopefully you can get it to me in the next week or two. Well, the next week or two turned into the next month or two, and now I'm in a problem. I don't know the whole procedure, so being part of the RPOA was very helpful to me in getting the documentation and the process of how to go through that eviction process.
So is that when you went to the RPOA? Was after you bought this 12 unit?
Well, the realtor that I bought the property from said, you really should be a part of the RPOA if you're going to buy this, because they're a great resource for landlords.
Great advice.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. They've been great to me.
So what kind of resources did you tap into then from the RPOA in order to help you take control of chasing these tenants for rent?
Well, it was mostly getting the forms that I needed to make it a legal process. It was getting access to lawyers through the RPOA that did business with them, and just talking to people that had property. What's the process? What do you do? How does this go? And just kind of learn on my own and through them.
Okay. But it took you 2 years to turn it around. That must have been pretty painful.
Oh, it was painful. Because, like my dad, I'm working a full-time job. My dad was so kind as to be my maintenance guy out there, so I never would have been able to do it without him, because he was going out there constantly for, the disrepair of buildings that were neglected for a while.
From the previous ownership?
Previous owner, yeah. Yeah.
So what were some of the strategies you put in place then during those 2 years to turn it around?
Well, again, I was just kind of, as far as operating it, I was a pen and paper guy. So I just did everything just through a ledger kind of a thing. But every time someone would move out, we would paint it and put in new carpet and just kind of make it nice. We did some landscaping on the outside. We painted the outside of the building. It was a nice property. It was, brick 4-unit and an 8-unit with off-street parking. So we just and I started bumping the rents. The rents were quite low. And
Where'd the rent start out at? Do you remember?
Man, I think the lowest one I had was around $395 in that area a month.
Wow.
And I think I got them up to about $575, $600.
Okay, so
Yeah, so
some good upside there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And were you getting better residents in the process?
I was. It took me a little time to learn how to put a good tenant in there, but I think I only had maybe 1 or 2 that I put in that I actually had to evict. Everybody else stayed, and they were good tenants. So once we got the bad ones out, things started operating much better in the last 3 years, which were much better than the first 2.
Good. At what point did you actually start making money, making some cash flow?
I think we cash flowed right from the start, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Even with all the headaches of chasing rents and people not paying.
Yeah, I suppose if I counted in the $1,500 losses I was taking, but at the end of the year we were profitable every year.
There's always money,
Yes.
more money in the account than where you'd started.
And I had my full-time job, so it wasn't like there was pressure that I had to make money. We just wanted to make money over time, maybe through the appreciation of the property. And just escalating the rents.
Right. So why did you sell it?
I think the whole operation of it and the tenants and toilets thing just was too much for me. I don't enjoy that part of it. That's what I learned. That's not my thing. So in hindsight, I probably should have had it professionally managed, but the experience that I had running this property was invaluable. Mm-hmm.
What did you learn from running it? What that you can use going forward?
Well, I think it's important to run it like a business. Take the emotion out of it, because I lost sleep all the time from these rents that weren't coming in and people lying to me about what was going on. And then I felt bad about kicking them out of the place that they lived, even though, I just didn't feel good about that. So I guess I got hardened a little bit and just treated it more like a business, and just, if they were late with the rent, I contacted them on day 3, day 5 or so, you hand them the notice to, hey, you got to pay the rent or you're going to have to leave, kind of thing. So I just treated it more like a business.
Right. And you got to the point where you followed through on evictions if that time came. How did you feel doing your first eviction?
I can't say that I felt bad. By that point, I was so mad that I had been lied to and they had really kind of beat up the property that I actually felt good about it. I'm like, this just isn't right. I have bills to pay, and the only way I can pay my bills is if the tenants pay their rent. So that sounds kind of cold, but it's, that's the only way you're going to succeed.
Yeah. I mean, they're living in a property, and there's a pact between the two of you.
Yep,
give
exactly.
them a safe, clean place to live, and they pay you rent.
And that's what I felt about it. I'm upholding my bargain by providing you a safe, good place to live that's well kept. And so all you have to do is pay the rent and you can stay.
Yeah. It's that easy, isn't it?
I had a no pet policy. And so I show up one day and there's 2 cats in the window. I'm like, well, what's that? So I talked to the tenant. They're like, oh, that's my sister's cat. Well, down the road, I ended up with a terrible flea infestation problem. To the point where I walked in and the fleas are jumping all around my feet. It was terrible.
Just in that unit, or did it spread to the entire
whole
building?
House.
Really?
The 4-unit. The whole 4.
Oh, that was in the 4-unit.
Yeah.
Right? Any other tenant horror stories?
Had another lady that probably lost her key 8 times, so she would cut the screen out and go through the window. That's how she would gain access to the apartment. I mean, it's just constant stuff like that.
Yeah.
Had a sewage backup in the 8 unit, so over 4th of July, we're vacuuming up sewage, raw sewage. I mean, that's all stuff, if you had it managed, you just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's exactly why I have hire property management companies, because I don't want
Yeah, I know.
I don't ever want to step into a unit and see fleas jumping around, and I don't ever want to have to clean up raw sewage.
No, I get that impression from listening to your podcast that's kind of your thought.
Yeah. But you chose to manage. I mean, you could have gone with professional property management.
I did.
What is it that you see as far as managing properties yourself that you prefer to hiring someone else to do it for you?
You know, I think probably the biggest reason I managed it myself is because that's what my dad did. You know, I watched him do it, and I think his thought is always. And I think in his era when he was doing property, I don't know that the property managers were as good as they are now. So he just had bad experiences and wanted to do it himself. So then I just did it myself, and he's like, "No, I can take care of the maintenance. You just do that, and we'll be fine." So, but I so don't enjoy the whole tenant problem part of the business that I just don't want to do that anymore. Like the 4 unit's been fine, but if I get bigger than this, I probably will have it managed.
All right. So what is your strategy then going forward? You don't want to deal with the tenant side of it. What do you do now?
Well, I've done a few land contracts, and the whole thought of mailbox money is wonderful. I mean, to think that you can still have a property and still get a payment, but have no concerns whatsoever, other than the person making the payment, is great. I've had a few of those, and it's been pretty good experience.
Well, take us through one. How'd you put together? I mean, take me through getting the property and putting it in under land contract. How'd that work? So with the 4 unit of the 12, I sold that traditionally in 2013 to an investor. And then he came back to me about 7 months later and said, "Hey, I really want to buy that 8 unit, but I don't have the money. Would you potentially sell it to me on land contract?" And I had sold my own home on land contract a few years before that, and I was just getting payments, and it was great. So I said, absolutely, let's do that. So the interesting story with that is that is this the 8 unit?
That's the 8 unit. Yep.
In Lowell. Okay.
So I had a bank loan still on that. I rolled all of the profit, or just the money from the 4 unit, into the loan. So I had significantly cut down my loan with the bank. And so I'm talking to one of my patients as I'm treating him, and I told him that I sold this property on land contract, and he said, "Well, how does the bank feel about that?" I said, "I don't know. Why? Is that a problem?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I don't think they would want you to do that if they knew that." So I'm like, oh boy, that's not good. But as it turns
a lot
out,
of times they have like a due on sale.
Yeah, exactly.
Clause. Yeah.
Yep. So I just kept making my payment, and the buyer kept making his payment, so it worked out great.
Mm-hmm.
And there was
Are
a
you still
spread
paying
in there.
down the bank loan?
No, he actually got refinanced and paid me off last year.
So no more land contract.
Nope. So we're out of that.
But you appreciated that because you were still getting the monthly
absolutely.
income without any of the headaches or responsibilities.
Yeah, the difference between what he was paying me and what I was paying was like $800 a month. So that was great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the next property that my dad and I did was a 2 unit on College Street. So we rehabbed that one, and then I sold the property on land contract to the same guy that bought my 8 unit in Lowell.
Where on College Street?
I want to say it's 1420 College and Quimby area.
Okay, so it's
kind of down toward the
north.
Kent Country Club.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you sold it to the same guy, land contract. He's still paying on that?
Except on that one. So the 8 unit, he cashed me out in 3 years. And so I'm like, boy, I wish I could have kept that going, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, I said, all right, so we'll do a land contract, but let's do it a minimum of 5 years. And so I sold it to him probably for less than I should have, but I'll get that money back on the land contract if we do it for 5 years.
Right, because he'll just keep paying on that.
Yep.
And but even when he paid you out on that 8 unit, that must have felt good to put a nice chunk of money in your pocket.
Absolutely. So now I've got a lot of cash in the bank. I'm like, all right, now we got to do the next deal. And now the market's so hot, it's hard to
It's hard
find
to find those deals
property. So
isn't
now
it?
I've got cash, but I don't have a good, place to put my money. That I still kind of like to buy low, and it's become very hard to buy low,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Well,
In Grand
we're in
Rapids.
Grand Rapids. I'm sure, just like many other communities, it's a very hot real estate market.
Yep.
A lot of people competing for a limited amount of inventory
Yep.
because there's just not enough housing right now for out there.
Yep.
You did do one deal this past year, or at least in 2016.
Yep.
It was an off-market deal. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, 2016, again, a realtor that we've done quite a few deals with or properties came to me with, and it was a property that had been vacant for 3 years, and the woman was living, the woman that owned it was living out of town. The niece was selling it, so she contacted the realtor. I happened to call my realtor friend. He contacted me and said, hey, I got this thing. You want to take a look at it? So we bought it. We paid cash for it, and we bought it in the winter, and it needed a lot of work. And when we walked in there, it smelled a little like urine to me, so I didn't really like that, but we bought it for such a great price that it was kind of a no-brainer. And then as it turns out, it had to go through a short sale process because this woman owed some money and things had to get straightened out. But in the end, I flipped it to another investor through the RPOA for a nice little profit, and then they went ahead and rehabbed it.
Oh, so you didn't even do any of the work.
Didn't do anything.
You just flipped it without...
Yep.
That's good.
Now, the interesting thing about that house is that when we finally got back into it was the summertime, and so it was kind of warm, and so that urine smell that we smelled in the wintertime was pretty strong. So I ran into this guy that rehabbed the property, and they have since sold it. I said, hey, how'd that go? And he said, great. He goes, but we ended up finding a box with 25 cat corpses in the basement. So apparently there were a lot of cats in that house. So the urine smell was was justified. So I don't know what was going on there.
Wow.
But I'm glad it was them that found that and not me.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to find.
You don't know. You never
these
know.
Houses. Wow.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you've had a lot of experiences doing all kinds of real estate investing. What other stories
Yep.
do you have for us?
Well, one thing that's, I think, maybe a lesson for some of your listeners is that, because I still rent my 4-unit on my own, I was renting it. And because I've had so many bad experiences with pets in apartments, I have a no pet policy. So I had a woman call me up about my vacancy, and she said, I have an emotional support animal, so do you allow emotional support animals? And I thought, well, first of all, I don't know what an emotional support animal is. That was a concept that was foreign to me. I said, well, if it's a pet, no, I don't allow pets. About a month or two later, I was in the process of becoming a realtor, and I was taking the class, and we're going through what you can and can't do when you're renting to people. And right in that book talked about emotional support animals and how you cannot discriminate against somebody that has one of those. So I thought to myself, oh, that might not be good. So a month later, I get a call from the Fair Housing Department of Grand Rapids. And they said, you're in violation of discriminating against someone and not allowing them to see your apartment because of the emotional support animal. So I explained to them, look, at the time, I had no idea what this was. I explained to them I've had really bad experiences with pets in my apartments, and they tend to destroy things. They said, well, that doesn't matter. You can't discriminate. So I had to write down all the steps that I would take to not discriminate against somebody that had an emotional support animal. So that was kind of a landlord lesson for me.
Wow. So did they fine you at all?
They
or
did
just
not.
made you
No. In fact,
do some homework.
Yep. They
Write
made
on the
me.
chalkboard?
They made me say why. The chalkboard. I will no longer discriminate against
Emotional support animals.
And it wasn't on purpose. And I know the lawyer that is the fair housing lawyer. So I talked to her, and she explained it to me. Okay, I get it.
Wow. So that's a good warning out there for any landlord listening to this, is you cannot discriminate against emotional support animals.
That's right. And quite honestly, those are things that professional property managers know that mom and pop guys like myself might not know. Or you can get in some trouble and not even, not on purpose.
Yeah, professional property managers are certainly aware of that and deal with it all the time. So right there, it's like, that's a good reason to be involved with the RPOA, to understand these issues, to pay attention to the fair housing laws, and just make sure that you're not discriminating in areas that you don't even realize are discrimination.
That's right. I actually thought maybe one of my buddy's wives was playing a joke on me and trying to...
Well, they send testers out.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It was a tester. She wasn't a real potential resident. She was just testing you.
Yep.
It's interesting because your dad kind of laid the groundwork for you as a real estate investor, and the way he was kind of a do-it-yourself kind of guy. How do you see your investing now as being similar or different from the way your dad was doing it when you were growing up?
My time is valuable, and especially because I have a full-time job, I like to hire things more than I like to do them myself, because I've done things myself. I've literally given away summers to doing these rehabs. And then you look back on it and say, all right, well, we made some money, but man, I didn't golf. I didn't go to the beach. I didn't travel. I didn't do the things that I like to do. So for me, I hope that I can buy properties where I can afford to have things done so I don't actually have to do them myself. I think I'd rather be more of an investor than somebody that's just got my hands in there until or unless I can back off of my physical therapy career and do it more myself. Then, because I enjoy it, I just don't have the time.
What other advice do you have for people out there in your situation? They have a full-time job, investing in real estate or looking to invest in real estate, and just trying to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah. Well, I think that what I have found is that it's not easy. You can make money. Real estate is great, either short-term with a flip or over time. But, you always hear these property gurus that just promise the world. And, people don't know what they don't know. When you get into these flips and you get into these deals, and it's harder than it looks. And I didn't talk about this at all, but my first job was a construction estimator. So I'm very comfortable being on construction sites and rehabs and flips. So I've done this for quite a while, and people that have never done it, I can't imagine how they would know how to do it. There's a lot to know, as far as costs of things and what you need to do. So
it's a lot harder than
it's harder than it looks. It really is.
Yeah, you have to take it seriously. Treat it as a business.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Pat, thanks so much for sharing your stories with us, and all the different ways that you've been involved in real estate investing. From growing up with your father, who owned 36 properties in the Heritage Hill area, to owning your 4-unit and doing some land contracts and flips.
You're welcome.
It's been a really interesting conversation.
Good, thanks. It's been fun.
This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And Icon Realty Group, helping home buyers, sellers, and investors in the West Michigan area. Find out more at theiconrealtygroup.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.